Hey everybody, it's currently 3:15 in Vegas. Couldn't sleep. I have some things that I feel like could be able to encourage someone or just um, let people know that they're not alone and be able to relate to me and just have somebody that you can be able to relate to and know that you're not going through things by yourself. So for starters, I'm 24 years old. I'm currently serving active duty U.S. Air Force. I'm out here in Las Vegas right now, stationed at Nellis. Also want to preface this with also saying that nothing that I'm about to say is being glorified or just made to seem like it's glamorous or just things that you should do to get to a point where you can be able to do better. But I'm just offering my story and just little small tidbits of advice to be able to move past a lot of things that you may be experiencing, because I'm definitely experiencing a lot of things that that have affected me in a way that could have been avoided, but you go through things for a reason. So I don't like to say that, but yeah, so we're just gonna get into it. So basically, I grew up, knew both of my parents, but I had a split parent household. So the way that worked for me is that I was split custody. I went in between 2 weeks and 2 weeks with my mom, 2 weeks with my dad, and both of my parents were there in my life. And then I was blessed enough to have two step parents as well that cared just as much about me as my biological parents. That's not a situation that you get to see a lot, because a lot of people have bad relationships with step parents when they come into the picture because of not having their actual parents around. But I didn't have to experience that, and I thank God for that. But yeah, just that portion of my life alone had a huge effect on how I looked at things and how I grew up ultimately. So starting off in elementary, middle school, the way that I was raised was to be a person that looked out for people no matter what people did to you or what people said to you or how people treated you. What that looked like though was pretty much when I was sent to school with money, I would give my last for people that wouldn't do the same for me. And I would just give my money away, basically, or give things away, because if I noticed that someone had a need for it, then if I didn't really need it, what good was it for me, ultimately, in a sense? So that affected me still today. And it's a good outlook to have, but at the same time, you have to look out for yourself a lot of the times and make sure that people work as hard as you do for the things that you earn. You can't just give your things away, because that just develops laziness in other people, and you're not doing that person as much as a favor as you think you are. So with that aspect, it's good and bad, but I don't really see it as a bad thing, because if I can help someone, why not? But that was pretty much how I was, like, as a kid. Anything that I could do for anybody, I wanted to. Any help that was needed, I wanted to offer a hand. Anything that I could do, pretty much, like, to make it easier for someone else, I did. Now, when it came down to communication and just being an emotionally intelligent person growing up, now, first of all, as a man, that's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you're not taught how to do it. And then growing up as a boy, all of those testosterone and emotions and just a lot of hormones raging, it's easy to default to the normal man settings. And what I mean by that is just anger, frustration, just rage, all of that stuff is just like normal for you to just resort to, because it's the easiest way to blow off steam, or that's what it feels like at least. But you're not doing yourself a favor by resorting to any of those things. But when I got in high school, I started developing friend groups. I still have two of my best friends that I had in high school that I'm still best friends with now to this day, and a couple of other people that I'm still acquainted with and friends with. But I started to notice that my emotions were changing and like hormones were changing. Like I went from this kid that was always like expressive, and then as I got older, I started to become more reserved, more quiet, because I started to understand my situation better. And when you think you understand something and you don't ask questions, that's a recipe for disaster, because at that point it's your understanding and not an actual big picture of what's going on. Yeah, that developed a lot of resentment in me towards my parents, and just having to go through that as a kid and thinking that it was very wrong. And yeah, just basically growing up with that and being in high school, seeing people with both of their parents in the same household and not having to go between households, or at least that's what I was seeing, like just both parents in the household for other kids. But the thing that I'm most grateful about is that neither one of my parents are dead. Neither one of my parents didn't want to be in my life, and neither one of my parents were in jail or in prison. And I really sympathize with people that have those situations, because when people tell me that my situation could be a lot worse than what it was, it's very evident when I list those things up, because when you count your blessings instead of counting just like the things that you're going through, or looking at the things that you're going through, it's easier to be able to manage the things that you're dealing with, because it's evident that your situation isn't as bad as somebody else's situation. And that's not to minimize your situation at all, but that's putting it in perspective and just thinking about the reality of it. My mindset wasn't that great when I was growing up either. I was always negative, just didn't have too much of a positive thought about anything because of what I was going through personally. It had nothing to do with anybody else. It had nothing to do with anything outside of my situation. And that situation within itself just birthed a lot of stuff in me, a lot of negative thoughts, and it allowed the enemy to play on me and just develop who I am today. But God, first of all, but God. And then second of all, you don't have to be a captive of your past. You don't have to allow things that happen to you ultimately become an excuse for who you are. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on and just explain. And I have a situation specific to this topic that I want to speak on. And I'm no professional, no therapist, no anything. I have no type of experience with talking about stuff like this. I don't do motivational speeches, none of that. This is just something that I felt on my heart that would be able to help someone else. But I grew up after high school, went to college. You know, when you go to those drug awareness classes, you sit there and think, you like, why am I learning about this? Why is this important? And you hear about all of these drugs, you hear about all of these different things that could happen to you. And you like, man, that can't be me. That wouldn't be me. And then you grow up and you fall to one of those drugs that you used to learn about. My drug of preference back then was marijuana, weed. And I know I don't look like the person that would get into that type of thing, but a lot of people don't look like a lot of things and they're in it. So that goes without saying, like, you never know what somebody went through or is going through just by looking at them. Don't judge a book by its cover. But you never think that you could fall into the pitfalls of doing drugs and just like the effects of them. You'd be like, oh, if I do the drug, I'm Superman, I'm invincible. That's the first thing that I want you to understand. No one is exempt from anything. And as a man, your ego, your pride, and just like the whole makeup of being a man gets in the way of your awareness of risk and just your awareness in general. And that's one thing I want to focus on right now is awareness. Remember that word. And awareness isn't just like knowing your surroundings or knowing things that are going on around you, but awareness is knowing yourself, knowing how things that you do affect other people, and just knowing like who you are. I thought I was invincible. I thought I used to do it every day. I used to smoke every day, every single day. And interestingly enough, I never smoked by myself, never. And I found that funny, like towards the end of me stopping smoking, like I'm like, wow, I never did it by myself. It was more of a social thing. But it's funny that I did it every day. And I just want to impart on y'all that doesn't have to be who you are ultimately. That doesn't have to be the end of the line for you. Just drugs and then that's it. Mine was a bit easier, but I'm dealing with the consequences of being an addict now in my life. So I joined the military in 2023, but I stopped smoking in October 2022. So this was recent, like not even 5 years ago. I pretty much quit cold turkey. Now, with quitting, it's something where you can stop, but the effects are pretty much gonna be there if you don't do anything about it, or you don't depend on God to help you out, or you don't go see a therapist, or you don't go to rehab for that stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh, weed's not a bad drug, but weed's not a bad drug. It's not. But at the same time, like if you were so dependent on something, that was the way you coped, and you just stopped altogether. You never had to emotionally deal with anything. You never had to just face any of your problems. You just ultimately a zombie. At the end of the day, you slept all the time. You had problems. You smoked, face one, and you're knocked out. You passed out. And then you wake up the next day, forget everything that happened. That was ultimately how I was. Like, no emotion, not dealing with my problems up front, and just ultimately somebody that was dead to emotion, or that was just nonchalant. I came off as nonchalant. I did care, but a lot of things, it's a lot more to it than just not caring. But I'm not gonna get into that. But yeah, weed. I got off of it. I was okay for the time being, and I was looking forward to basic and all of that stuff. Got to basic, started experiencing a lot. Like, can't talk to anybody except for the people that you're there with. You don't have any family there. You don't have your friends there. So all the things you previously depended on for coping are not there. It's just you, God, and whoever's in your dorm. If you've ever been in the military or been to basic or any type of basic training, Air Force is not the hardest basic training, but it is a basic training that exists. And it's just as restrictive as any other basic training. It's not as intense, but it's restrictive. I didn't get to call my family, but probably 2 times when I was there, and I was there for 7.5 weeks. And the only way of communication I had was letters. And the letters were in rotation, like every 2 weeks you get mail. That's how long it would take for me, at least. And, or every week and a half or something like that. But that's not neither here nor there. But there's a lot of things that I had to deal with while I was at basic, and I had nothing but time to think. They kept us busy, but like in that downtime, and then I was in a leadership position too. I had nothing to do but to think. So that's where I started going to church every Sunday that I could at basic, and things started to get better, and then the end started to get close. I seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and yeah, that was that chapter. Left basic, went to tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base. This is when things started to change for me. Yeah, a lot of things started to change, and I stopped going to church, stopped reading my Bible. I just indulged in a lot of other things like gaming, and that's what you know me for now. But yeah, gaming, just drinking. I wasn't even like a heavy drinker either. Like, it's just occasional. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the way that you should cope with things. Whether it's 1 drink, 2 drinks, or just like you just you get hammered. Drinking isn't a good way to cope with anything, or just any type of substance abuse isn't a good way to cope with anything. But yeah, that's what pretty much tech school was for me, and just hanging around people that didn't have that relationship with God that I needed, or people to encourage me. Of course, you had like the normal encouragement, like, oh yeah, we'll all get through it. Tech school is what I'm talking about. We'll all get through tech school, but tech school was more like college. It wasn't anything challenging about it to me, but everybody had their different outlooks. Everybody was away from family. So that can definitely affect you in a way where you start thinking a certain type of way as well. My wife would come visit me. Well, we got married while I was in tech school, but I knew we were going to get married, and I knew that she was somebody that I loved, and she kept my head on straight, and God sent her in my life, I feel like, for a reason. And she kept my head on straight for a very long time, and just helped me have a positive outlook. She's like the most radiant, joyful, just positive person I know. Just a ray of sunshine. Always there for you if you need her. And she helped me through a lot of things. Always have someone that you can depend on in situations, because that matters. You can't go through things by yourself. Yes, you can pray. Yes, you can do all of these things for yourself. They help. But having a support system, having someone there for you, will make all the difference in the world. But back to the past not defining who you are. I could have easily took that situation and then going to my first base in Washington, where it was in Washington State, rains all the time, very gloomy, depressing. I was depressed. I slipped into a depression, and I feel like I still am depressed a little bit, but I'm getting over it, and I'm becoming a little more positive, but I'm going through something right now as well. But what I wanted to say is that no matter what you go through in life, don't let anything define you, or don't let anybody define you by what you've done in the past. It will ultimately develop you into a person that you don't like. And I've been in that position where I hated myself because of the things that I've done. I failed out of college, dropped out, went home, go get 3 jobs. Ultimately, you're not gonna like yourself. And it's gonna be tough for you to be lonely. It's gonna be tough for you to do things alone, be by yourself, and just continue on with life, because you never forgave yourself for the things that you've done, and you never moved past a lot of stuff that happened. So I'm saying this for myself, but I'm also hoping that this helps someone, because I know a lot of people out there are depressed. I know a lot of people are suicidal, because I've been there. But one thing that I want to say that helped me is this: 1% better today is 100% better than yesterday. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. It doesn't matter how much progress you don't see. There's always progress. From yesterday to today, there's always progress. And that itself is monumental. That's nothing to take lightly, because if you wake up the next day and you're not doing the same thing you were doing yesterday, that's progress. So always remember that, and just having faith in something. I'm not converting anybody to what I believe in, but having a relationship with God is the best thing that I could have turned to in my situation. Whatever you believe in is whatever's keeping you grounded is going to ultimately pull you through your situation. I am a new creation in Christ because I believe in him, and I have to turn away from the old things and focus on what's ahead of me. Because if I keep constantly doing a 180, looking back at stuff and being like, I used to do this, I used to do that, I used to do this, ultimately you're just going to keep living that life, and you're never going to change. So I have to remember that myself, and just keep pressing forward. Keep the door open in front of you. Don't turn around and open a door that you've already closed, because there's no reason to go back into that room. You want to move past that. You want to be done with that. And you want to be able to be healthy and be able to cope effectively and understand your emotions. So you have to move past those things. Don't let your past determine you, and just always look forward. Now, for men, something that's been helping me lately is this book, The Samson Syndrome. Now, I know Samson is a biblical character. I don't like using the word character, but he was a person that was in the Bible that was everything a man shouldn't be. And just because it has to do with the Bible doesn't mean that you have to be Christian or have a relationship with God to understand it. It's very straightforward, and it's not even telling you what not to do as a man. It's telling you the things that strong men suffer from. So I feel like that's a unique perspective within itself. I feel like everyone should read this book. Every man should read this book. If you're a wife, you should read it to understand men better. There's a lot of things that we struggle with that women don't understand, and vice versa. There's a lot of things that women struggle with that men don't understand. So the more we can help each other, and the more that we build that bridge and build that inclusiveness with our just being a man, it makes things a lot easier, and it helps you to move on from a lot of things too. Because if you know what you're suffering from, it's easier to get over it. If you know how to build a bridge, it's easier to get over that gap. It's easier to get over that canyon, that chasm. Whatever you're trying to get over is easier to get over once you know how to maneuver. So just don't let your past determine who you are and who you're going to be and who you know that you can be, because I don't want you to be a bitter person. I don't want to be a bitter person. I don't want to have resentment toward myself, and I don't want to have resentment toward anybody else. I appreciate my parents for what they've done for me. I appreciate my wife. I appreciate all of my support that I've had from my church. and just ultimately just keep looking forward. Don't look back, and just keep the doors open in front of you. Hope you guys got something from this video. It helped me a lot just to talk about it. But yeah, I hope this encouraged someone. I hope you're able to get over whatever you're facing right now. But yeah, just keep moving forward. Don't look back.